we had a study that related to the fact that the order that you're born in your family turns out to have an impact on how you turn out. Big studies have found that the eldest kids are more successful and have higher IQs. So all the eldest in the room are nodding and smiling. I love to look at everybody. I was like, that's a load of crap. I'm going to listen to this example. So it's population-wide, okay, in general. It's not predestinating your success in life. You are much smarter than your older sister. I know that. So when we were pitching this to the Post, we made sure we had real people with 3 or more kids that we could suggest so the reporter wouldn't have to find them or living that situation. And we had third parties that we know were knowledgeable on the topic, including the lady at UCLA who did the seminal study in this field. Joe, my coworker, pitched it. He got it on the front page of the Post. She found her own family, but she used the outside sources that Joe suggested. The lady at UCLA says, I get more publicity when you guys do a birth order study than when I do, because it's the second time we used her as a third party to validate something that we were sending out. Today's show picked it up from there, and there's the professor and his son, which is one other one of the real people that we suggested. He's got 4 kids, and he and his wife agreed to let them be a part of the shoot. Okay? Everybody see how the do it for them pays off? 2 things. It helps your story be more likely to be selected, and then it helps you be able to shape the messaging that goes into that because you've been able to work with the sources. 5 years ago, I would have said, don't do any of that. Don't suggest an expert because it would taint them in the eyes of the journalists. They're biased because you chose them. Now they're so busy, if you suggest someone with the appropriate credentials, someone who's not being paid by you guys, but knows what they're talking about, then they have a good chance about being used. You see that logo in the bottom? CBS Evening News picked up the story. Sports Center, Headline News, and lots of other online and print outlets. The awesomest thing about this is the PR team totally created it themselves, right? They didn't have to go out and get their marketing folks to find a new sponsor or donate different money to somebody else. They just created an angle that would appeal to journalists. And it certainly didn't cost them any money. So I just called the editorial page, and I got a receptionist who was very good at her job, which must have been to deny access to anyone who calls and asks who edits the op-eds. I failed the first time. I thought I could find a different way. I called her a second time and was reduced to pleading. She said, she wasn't mean, but I got her to the point where she said, we can't just give out their names to anybody off the street. And I said, I'm not coming off the street. I'm 2,000 miles away. It's the only way I would ever know. She denied me again. So in the coming months, I was coming to D.C. for a conference. One of the sessions was a panel about working with editorial pages. One of the panelists worked at the Washington Post. So I swallowed my pride. I got there early, and I conspicuously parked myself at the door, and everybody who walked in, I looked at their name tag, and when the Washington Post guy walked in, I introduced myself, and I said, I've got an op-ed for you to look at. I'm going to be over at the Post today, and I'd love to show it to you. And he says, oh, you don't have to do that. Just send it to op-ed@washpost.com. And then, so here's where I did something that it's not my personality to do. I said, oh, it's okay. I'll already be over there. How about 2 o'clock? And he goes, okay. But the professor was on my case about it, and this was my last shot. So I did it. I went over there at 2 o'clock. I walked in, presented myself to the receptionist, and I said, I'm Michael, I have a 2 o'clock appointment with Tom. And she said, oh, go right in. And I said, now who's denying me? No, I did not say that. But I thought. I stumbled across the only way to do it. And a couple weeks later, that op-ed ran on a Sunday above one from John Kerry. That put that topic on the media agenda. New York Times wrote a feature about it. A 60 Minutes producer read that article and called me. Soon Dr. Hudson was on a plane to New York where she was interviewed by Leslie Stahl, who then went to China and spent $1 million reporting this story. And when it aired on 60 Minutes, 17 million people saw it. Because I stood in front of a guy in a hotel conference room and was really uncomfortable doing so. So that's the payoff for being diplomatically tenacious. It feels awkward and hard at the time, but you best believe it was worth it when all this was over, when I was watching that on that Sunday night at 60 Minutes. Awesome.